All right. Hello, everyone. Can you all see and hear me without any issue? Excellent. Okay, so today what we are going to do before we finish off the material on new directions in epistemology, we're going to pause from our regularly scheduled broadcast, as it were, and talk about the essay proposal and essay assignment. Now, I know it seems early, right? Like, hey, this isn't due for a while. The proposal is due in November. It's due, well, a little over a month from now. And the final paper is due on the last day of the exam period, which is December 20th. But I want you all to feel really prepared and really confident going into this assignment, or these two assignments, I should say. And so I'm doing this now, right, to get it out of the way. I'm going to teach you all about how to approach your essay proposals, and I'll tell you all about how to take your proposal and the feedback that the TAs and I will give you and turn that into the beginning of your final paper. Then on Thursday, we'll quickly finish off new directions in epistemology, um, and then we will get into the unit on perception. So that's the plan for today. Let's see here. Slideshow from the beginning. There we go. So, as mentioned, there is an essay proposal that you must complete as part of this class, and it is due on November 14th at 11:59 p.m. It's worth, if I've got this correct, let's actually just double check the course outline. I believe it's worth 20%, but I'm going to make sure I'm not misleading you. I definitely got the due date correct. By the way, there's an updated course outline that I've put on Brightspace. Just a reminder in case you didn't see that announcement. This updated outline contains the information, the contact information for your teaching assistants. Yep, essay proposal is worth 20% and the final essay is worth 35. So both of these are worth, a pretty good chunk of your grade in this class. So you want to be really, thinking about them early on, which is why we're doing this a little early on. I would encourage you to use the template that I have provided, which you can find on Brightspace. Um, and I'll show you where to find it exactly. It's in the helpful materials module, but I'll show you in a moment. You're going to aim for probably no more than 300 words. Of course, that should exclude um, your references section, and if you decide to use a title page, obviously that doesn't count toward the word count. Just the three sections of the proposal count toward your word count. You want to make sure that you include all of the necessary information. So, obviously, student course info. Try and give it a nice title. Remember that you're not married to the title, right? You can change the title later on for your final essay. You can even change the topic, but just let me know if you're going to do that. The topic, not the title. Using the template kind of guarantees that you will get the format of this correct, right? So that's why I highly encourage you to use the template that I've provided. You just have to fill in the blanks, right? Fill in your name, student number. Um, Everything else is taken care of. My name, the course code, the due date, etc. Well, not the due date, but uh, the subheadings are there, and there's some additional instructions I'll show you too, in addition to a grading scheme. You want to make sure that you clearly state the topic that your paper will cover. Um, you're going to deliver either a research question or a thesis statement, and you'll give me a sort of plan that you have in mind for the paper. You also want to include a preliminary bibliography or works cited page. This is so that you can identify some sources that you're thinking of using. And very importantly, you must also submit proof of student work, right? So, um, according to the course outline, one of the things that I do is that I reserve the right to ask for this proof of work, and I do this for a couple of reasons, right? One is that it kind of gives me an insight into your writing process, so I can see how things have developed. And that allows me to kind of tailor my feedback to you. If I see that over the course of developing your ideas, there are certain maybe difficulties you're facing, certain errors that are happening, I can step in and say, hey, watch out for this when you do the final essay, right? Another reason that I ask for proof of work in the form of these drafts is because it kind of forces you to write and then step away for a little bit. Some students say to me, "But hey, professor, I like to write my proposal or my essay all in one sitting." And I say, "Well, okay, but that's not really the best way to write. What you want to do is draft something, step away from it, come back to it later with a sort of fresh mind, um, and then uh, reevaluate it, rewrite parts that need rewriting, etc. Spell check, look for mistakes with grammar and sentence structure and so forth. Then step it away again, come back, finalize that draft, make it perfect as it can be, and then submit it along with your earlier drafts. Well, the proposal can be about whatever you want, as long as it's related to the theme of the class. Yeah, I'll explain this in a little more detail momentarily. Um, the final and a very important reason why I asked for proof of student work is because, of course, we're also in the age of the so-called generative AI. I This is I don't know, something that's very much within my wheelhouse. And I'm actually of the opinion that generative AI is neither really all that generative or really all that intelligent. And so, obviously there was a bit of a fervor generated by these sorts of things, chat GTP, etc., GPT, excuse me, chat GPT. Uh, oh my goodness, essay writing is over. It passes the Turing test. No, 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 no. I will read you the policy on the use of generative AI, but basically you should not be using it with a couple of exceptions that I'm reluctantly making. I don't want to see any AI use, and the multiple drafts policy helps to guard against that because the drafts have to clearly demonstrate the progress that you've made at actually writing the essay, right? So I say like submit like two or three drafts in addition to the final draft that clearly show the progress that you've made. And again, it's not just about worries over AI, right? I don't want to leave you all with the impression that I think many of you will cheat using AI. That's not what this is about. It is a sort of safeguard against that, but I don't think that's what you're thinking of doing, okay? Remember that it also gives me insight into how you write, and it also helps you be a better writer. And that's what we're here to do, right? We're not just learning philosophy, we're learning how to write. We're learning how to conduct research, right? And so this also helps with that. And that's why we're doing it. If I don't get proof of work, I just won't evaluate it. I won't evaluate your proposal. So do remember to submit the proof of work. If you forget, and then I release the grades, and you're like, "Oh my goodness, where are my grades?" Oh no, I forgot to send the proof of work. Send it to me, and then I'll mark your work, right? So honest mistakes, that's okay. Drafts of the proposal, not as many drafts. You could do like one or two, or sorry, two or three. Yeah, the first draft could be brainstorming notes. The first draft, some people send me a scan of like their handwritten notes. Some people do it on the computer, like bullet points. That's fine for a first draft, for like an idea stage. Then maybe a second draft could be like your rough full draft. And then maybe an additional draft where it's been edited, maybe revised a little bit further, and then your final draft. No, no, Yusuf. It's going to be different for everybody, right? Some people might start by just writing the a draft of the area of interest section, and then they might come back and edit that, and then write their thesis statement, and then they might come back later and write a draft of their plan of attack, and then the final draft, which is the draft I mark, will be like the edited complete draft, right? That could be something. Or you might write it all in one shot and then edit it and revise it two or three times, right? That's also okay. It just has to show me that you're making sort of like incremental progress, right? Rebecca, that's a good question. I'm going to get to that question, so I'll answer that for you in a moment. Yes, yes, Natalie, definitely take advantage of any resources that Carleton has to offer. Yeah, I absolutely encourage that. If you need to go to writing services or CSAS, I'm not actually sure what that is. CSAS, is that writing services or something similar? Whatever it is, if they've got writing sessions, yeah, yeah, totally do that. Definitely. If there are questionable comments on the side about my feelings about the quality of my writing, is that okay? Um, like for me, or your own comments, Galen. Mm. Um, you could put those in one of the drafts, maybe not the final draft, but yeah, you could include like notes for yourself or for me, and maybe like the penultimate draft. Well, like I said earlier, Yusuf, things always need editing. Things can always be better than they are. So it's unlikely that there's not going to be a need to edit, right? Yeah, that's fine in drafts, Galen. Um, yeah, yeah, it's all about Isaac. It's all about showing your progress. Yeah. Okay, the Center for Student Academic Support. I feel like I definitely should have known what that stands for. But yes, do take advantage of that. I think there's also writing services in the library where you can drop by and they'll look at a bit of your work and make some suggested edits. Um, Khalid asks, would it be permitted for us to select a topic that could be linked back to a class concept but was not covered in the course? Yes. Yes, exactly. You could do that. You could, like on a specific thinker. Kenzie, yep, you could do that. Um, let's move on a sec. I just want to make sure I get through this. Yeah, even if it like really, so in terms of choosing your topic, it can really be like anything we've covered or anything related to something we've covered. So anything to do with metaphysics, epistemology, or mind is fair game. And this is another reason why I have you do the proposals, right? If you pick something that's way too off topic, then the TAs and I can kind of steer you back in the right direction, right? So don't worry. Will there be examples? Yeah, we'll come up with some examples later. Um, Yeah, 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 Yusuf. Basically, here's how it's going to work. What you're going to do is identify an area of interest, right? And that can be anything related to what we're learning about directly, but it can be related indirectly too. Um, so you want to describe this area of interest for the reader. Um, I would say aim for like a longer paragraph or maybe two smaller paragraphs. Remember, the whole thing is supposed to be a max of 300 words. So I wouldn't spend any more than 150 words on the area of interest, but give me enough that I know specifically what your paper is going to be about. Right. And when you're doing this, don't assume the reader knows anything about. Pretend that it's not me, right? Um, Pretend you're talking to somebody who's intelligent but who doesn't know anything about philosophy, right? So you this imaginary reader is going to be smart enough to know to understand your proposal. Um, but they're not going to know anything about philosophy. So you have to just give them just enough about what your paper is going to be about so that this intelligent non-philosopher will understand what your paper is going to be about. So think of it like that. Then you're going to identify either a research question or formulate a thesis statement. Maybe a research question could be like, can a machine, such as a computer or a robot, possess a soul? This is actually a question that I use for an example in my Minds and Machines seminar, my first year seminar on Minds and Machines. But it is related to this class as well. After all, um, since antiquity, and really until quite recently, and not even for everybody, nowadays. There are still people like in antiquity who understand that the mind just is the soul. So it's the same thing. They were considered the same thing for millennia. And some people still think of them as the same thing. So that's an interesting research question because we talk about computers as if they're intelligent machines, right? We're in this age of generative AI. That's a pretty hot topic. So you might ask, could an artificial cognitive system like a computer or a robot have a soul? That could be a research question. Or maybe you want to skip the research question and just introduce your topic, right? Oh, on the topic of souls and minds and machines, maybe give me 150 words about that. And then give me your thesis statement, which might read, in this paper, I will argue that machines cannot possess a soul. Now, keep in mind, this is very important. Either one of these approaches is fine. But if you decide to use the research question option, you need to give me the answer to that question right away. The answer to your research question essentially functions as your thesis statement. So notice, like I've set it up that way here. Can a machine, like a computer or a robot, possess a soul? Well, in this paper, I will argue that machines cannot possess a soul. Right away, question, answer. And that answer works as your thesis statement. And then the paper is about convincing the reader that you are correct about that answer. So that's very important. You'll lose marks if you decide if you're like, oh, I'm going to come up with a research question and you don't tell me how you're going to answer it. That's an incomplete thesis. So you've got to tell me. It's a formal research essay. The question sets up your thesis. Yeah, that's right, Dervish, exactly. And then after that, the final section, you got to tell me your plan of attack. So, what kind of evidence are you going to search for? How are you going to use it? Tell me about some stuff you've identified. If you're writing about minds and machines, you might say, oh, well, I'm going to talk about some Descartes. Maybe I'm going to draw from the discourses on the method. Maybe I'm going to include some 20th century stuff, like maybe some Hilary Putnam, a little Alan Turing, a little bit of John Searle, maybe, right? And you're going to explain how you're going to use it, right? Like, oh, I'll start with Descartes, who famously thought that machines could not think, and give his sort of reasons why. Then maybe do it dialectically, like bring in Turing and the Turing test, and then maybe Searle's response, the Chinese room thought experiment. All of this we're going to talk about in this class, by the way, in an upcoming lecture. So tell me, what you've got so far, how you're going to use it, what you have yet to do, and how you're going to do it. Tell me how your argument is going to proceed. Give me a sketch of how you envision the paper. And then, of course, following this, you're going to have your references section or your bibliography section. In the plan of attack thing, I don't want to be hearing vague stuff like, I'm going to go to the library and find books. Like, yeah, I know. That's that's what we all do. That's the starting point for everybody. What I want to know is like what kinds of things you're going to look at. So I'm going to search for, I don't know, um, some some analytic philosophy of mind that deals with computers and artificial intelligence, right? Great. Tell me that. As for the essays themselves, they're due on December 20th, right? Last day of the exam period. The essay is a final take-home exam. So I can make the due date as late as possible. So I've set it at December 20th. Aim for, I'd say, 1,200 words, which is not that long. That's not very long at all. In fact, the challenge here is really going to be making a convincing argument in such a short space. But since this is such a big class, I kind of have to make the essays short. And that's unfortunate. Just because of, we're considering like TA resources, managing our time, etc. Um, if you want, you can go a little bit above 1,200 words. I would say no more than 1,500 though. Worth 35% of your grade. Late essays and late proposals. If I don't hear from you, if you don't request an extension, there's going to be a 5% penalty per day. But let me know, like, if there are some kind of extenuating circumstances, like if you're sick or if your computer breaks down, or if you have some kind of extracurricular activity, or if you have a religious commitment, like whatever it is, just let me know and I'll work with you. It's when I don't hear from you and you just submit it late with no explanation, no reason given, then there's going to be a penalty. So if something happens, let me know as soon as you can. Yeah, I'd say like yeah, aim for a solid 1,200. Don't go under 1,200. You can go a little over if you want, but don't go under 1,200. Well, you better make sure you're certain of your reality, Diego. Got to go through some kind of Cartesian meditations to make sure that you get the due date right. I'll tell you what, like, we've all got these things, right? Put it in your calendar or write it on a note, stick it up on the wall. Or, you know, do you guys all still have those little those sticky calendars? You can stick them on your wall and you can write on them with a dry erase marker. Before smartphones, when I was an undergrad, that's how I remembered to get everything done. I had a calendar that was like a dry erase calendar, and instead of the calendar in my phone, I just had this thing on my wall by my desk, and that's how I remembered everything. What if I can get my point across and follow essay formatting, but I'm in the 500 word ballpark? That will not be a good essay. That won't work. No, you got to aim for 1,200. No, no. If you go over, it won't affect your mark. If you go under, it will. Okay, so that's the proposal. I just want to show you something before we get to the policy on plagiarism and the policy on AI. So I want to make sure you can all find the template. Let's get this out of the way here. Okay, so here we are in week 6, and you want to find where do I get this template? So you go to course home, go all the way down to the bottom. We want to make sure we can view all our course modules. You want to go way down to the bottom there, and you want to click on the Helpful Materials module. And there you'll find, if we scroll down, I get myself out of the way here. We scroll down and we find the essay proposal template. So you just want to download that. Oh no, is it starting to rain? Oof, I hope not. Then you scroll down and you can download this, but I'm not going to download it because I obviously have a copy on my computer, but let's look through it. See, student name, student number, assignment due date. You can fill all that in. Here's a title. Delete this, put a little title there. Remember, you're not married to the title. The title can change. Then, in no more than 150 words, tell me about your area of interest. Here's where you put your research question or your thesis statement, and here's where the plan of attack goes. Please delete all of these italicized instructions before you submit. Put your references here. Don't use bullet points. You need to check out the style guide. And there's a link to, well, all the style guides in the helpful materials module. I've linked you to Purdue University's online writing lab, and they have all of the different citation style guides. I recommend APA. You don't have to use APA. I just think APA is nice and simple and straightforward. Another question. Yeah, you absolutely, yeah, it's a research essay. So, yeah, you've got to find sources. Okay, so a few additional things to keep in mind. Delete these instructions, please. Don't leave them in there. Save the copies of your work, right? Say like, my essay, draft one, draft two, etc. Final draft. Gotta submit that proof of work. Try to be engaging with your writing, and I do encourage people to write in their own style because, again, with generative AI, um, I think one of the reasons why, well, one of the nice things you can do is write your paper in a way where it sounds like a human wrote it. Um, I want that. I want those little human idiosyncrasies to be there. Um, but just remember, you're going to aim for a more formal tone, not a conversational tone, right? You don't want to be writing the way you do the way you speak when you talk to your friends, right? Um, you need to make sure that you're aiming for a more formal tone. No, not really, but I'd say between 3 to 5 sources is a good number. Well, there should be some, right? There should be some. So if you're going to, again, like maybe you're writing on that imagined topic that I had on the slides. Maybe you're going to write on minds and machines, and you want to argue that machines can or cannot have souls. Um, you need to tell me what sources you've already identified. Maybe you're going to talk about it in terms of like the Turing test. So, like, okay, if the mind is the soul, then we need a test to see if machines can think. So, okay, Computing Machinery and Intelligence by Alan Turing. Let's use that. And then maybe we'll use Minds, Brains, and Programs by John Searle, where he introduces the famous Chinese room thought experiment, which sort of rebuts the Turing test. Then maybe what you're going to do is adjudicate between these two and use it in for your argument that machines can or cannot have souls. Well, those are two sources right there that you've already got. Put those on your references section, right? You can use Crumley's book as a source. Generally, I try and avoid textbooks. However, in the further reading sections, where Crumley cites the books and journal articles that he is actually citing, those are great. Go and use those, right? Like we've been talking a lot about, like, well, new directions in epistemology, right? We talked about Quine on naturalized epistemology. Don't cite Crumley, cite Quine, right? Go and read Epistemology Naturalized and use that as a source, right? I would try not to cite my lectures or my anything. What you want to go for is primary scholarly sources. But again, I'll say more about this in a moment. Yes, exactly, Yusuf. You're trying to gather evidence. That's what the research portion is about. You're gathering evidence to use in your argument to convince me of your thesis. Yes, it can, Praneel. And again, I'll say more about this momentarily. So that's the additional instructions. This is a grading scheme. This is how I will evaluate the assignment. An F, almost no one gets an F. Um, like it's got to be really bad for you to get an F. It has happened, but usually it's a case of somebody just not doing the assignment, right? An assignment in the D range is poor. So it falls very short of the word limit. There's a lot of maybe unnecessary repetition. Bad argument contains errors of reasoning, so logical fallacies. Um, there are a lot of problems with spelling, grammar, and sentence structure that make it very, very unclear. It identifies no sources or it relies solely on non-scholarly sources. It doesn't demonstrate an understanding of what we've been learning about. So overall, it fails to meet most of the objectives. But you gave it a try, so a D. And again, D range is 50 to 59 out of 100. The C range is satisfactory. So it might fall short of the word limit, but maybe not severely. Maybe you've written, I don't know, 900 words instead of 400 words, right? Um, no, probably not, Sohaila. Um, maybe there's a little bit of unnecessary repetition, but not too much. You want to avoid repeating yourself, right? Unnecessarily. Maybe there's one or two errors of reasoning in there. Maybe there are a bit of problems with your writing, such that things are less clear than they could be. Uh, you use scholarly sources, but maybe there are also some non-scholarly sources that are not being used appropriately. Maybe you're not citing your sources correctly. Um, it shows a satisfactory understanding of what we've been learning about, but not like a mastery. Um, it's all right. An assignment in the C range, which again is from 60 to 69 out of 100, is just kind of like meh, right? It's just kind of okay. It's not terrible, but it's not great. An assignment in the B range is good. If you get a B, that's not bad. B is good. B is 70 to 79 out of 100. You meet the word limit or perhaps exceed it. And maybe there's a little tiny bit of repetition, but not much. It doesn't sink your paper. You've got a good argument, but there is room for improvement. Maybe the writing is good, but again, maybe there's a little bit of room for improvement. Um, it relies on the right kinds of sources, and you cite those sources correctly. Shows that you understand what we've been learning about, and that you're using it, you're applying it properly in your paper. But maybe there's a little room for some improvement. It meets the objectives for this assignment, but it could be better, right? It could be a little better. You'd reach out to the person who grades your paper. And by the way, I'd strongly discourage grade grubbing. Like, if you don't agree with the grade, I mean, I'm going to put this as nicely as I can. Um, it's not the student's call what grade they get. That's my job. That's the TA's job. Um, you can ask questions about why you got the grade you did, but it's not appropriate to say, Professor, I deserve a better grade. It's just not your call. Um, I I can try to provide examples, but there's issues with privacy and intellectual property here. I could try and write an example, like an example proposal. Um, I'll see what I can do. But sharing the work of other students from previous classes is tricky because I'd have to ask them for permission. In the past, have essays written based on course concepts done better than ones using topics beyond? It really no, it's not like that. Some students have done a great job of going um beyond our learning materials. Some students have done an excellent job keeping very much within the confines of the course. Well, I'll explain that in a second, Zane. Um, okay, so an assignment in the A range is excellent. It meets or exceeds the word limit, and there's absolutely no unnecessary repetition. There are no errors of reasoning, no logical fallacies, no significant issues with your writing. Maybe just like a typo here or there, something very minor. It uses proper scholarly sources. Everything is cited correctly. You show me that you have mastered the learning materials and that you know how to use them to make a convincing argument. An A range, that's excellent. And that's from 80 to 89. The A plus range is from 90 to 100. And that you need to really impress me. What does that mean? Um, it means that you deliver something that I would expect not in a first year course, but in a more advanced course. So Zane's question, right? Does that mean you're impressed by our level of fluency and how convincing the essay is? Yes. Does it mean I like the topic? Well, yeah, sure. I mean, I might like a topic that a terrible paper I might like the topic chosen for a terrible paper that gets a C. Liking the topic is fine, but really, it's about showing me that you have really mastered this stuff. Um, Something that I would expect to see in an upper year undergraduate class, right? As we are writing the proposal, are we able to ask you questions to help us improve? Yeah, if you run into a question or an issue, you can let me know. I would say maybe do this in the Discord server so that everybody can benefit, right? Like if you're like, Professor, how do I go about um, you know, making how I go about the area of interest. I want to go, well, I'm stuck. Well, I might say like well, go from broad to narrow. Like gradually introduce your topic, like, oh, if I want to talk about minds and machines, you could talk broadly, like, about how since antiquity, the mind and the soul have been regarded as the same thing, and then gradually narrow down to the topic of minds and machines, and get think of it like an upside down pyramid, right? So I would be able to share that on the Discord server, and everybody could benefit from that. So that's how you find the proposal. um, go back up to the top here, and again, just go to the helpful materials module, and you can also find, again, the link to the Discord server. This is the link to the online writing lab. Very helpful. So all of us know how to find this. Oh, good. Excuse me. Oh, I've moved my little chat thing over here. I don't know how to put it back. There we go. Uh, nice. Yeah, that's great, Galen. Yeah, because like people do ask about Grammarly, and you've got to be careful because if it is using generative AI, then you run the risk of accidental plagiarism. So if this is pre-AI Grammarly, that's great. You show proof of work by submitting multiple drafts. So, what exactly? Do we all know how to save drafts? Like, I know it's a silly question, but I've had students who are like, I've never had to do this before. You don't. Oh no. Oh my goodness. I'm so old. You know, back in my day, computers didn't even boot up into Windows. We had to get into, they booted up into DOS and you had to type win, enter to get into Windows. That's how old I am. Um, no, don't duplicate the file. Okay. Yes, save as. Thank you. Okay. So, meant for paper. I don't know. I'm not sure what you mean. But look, go to file. Like this is our course outline. So let's say I've edited, let's say I've done this. You know, I've added my TA information there. File, save as, and then see where it says title, I can just add something like updated, save, easy. Okay. So that's how you're going to do this. You're going to save multiple drafts. Lisa, go ahead.
Okay. So I think maybe because I'm dumb, but
Oh no,
how
no,
I don't
no.
still understand how that is a draft.
So if you sit down and write, I don't know, like your area of interest section, save that as draft one, like my essay proposal draft one.
Mm-hmm.
And then you open it up the next day after you've given your brain a bit of a break. You open it up the next day and you edit what you've written yesterday, and then you write, I don't know, the thesis and the plan of attack. Then you hit save as draft two. And then maybe you edit the whole thing one more time, final draft, and submit all of that to the Brightspace Dropbox. Does that
It
make sense?
says, oh, so it says differently then.
Yeah, like don't automatically save. Don't just hit like I'll show you here. Like if you open up Word, let's open up a blank document, right? You can save the current draft by hitting this button, like the little floppy disk looking
Yeah.
thing, right? But you don't want to do that. What you want to do is go save as, give it a title, my essay draft one, say, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there we go. And then save that like that. And then when you open draft one up and do more work, save that as draft two.
Okay,
Make
got it.
sense? Yeah.
Yes.
All
Thank you.
right. No problem. Zane, got a question?
Yeah, so since we'll be doing save as every time, that means that you want us to submit more than one doc.
That's right. Two or three early drafts plus the final draft. And you can submit them all in the same Dropbox. You don't even need to put them into a zip file or anything. Just highlight them all, drag them all into the Dropbox, and that's all there is to it.
All right, perfect.
Yeah, no problem. All right, now what's happening in the chat? Yes, save. I mean, I'm not sure how much clearer I can be. You don't have to save every time you do something, just like when you're done working for the day. Doc is preferred, PDF if you don't have Word. Two to three drafts. Yeah, Galen, that's a good point. That is suboptimal, as you say, but if you forget, it is a perfectly workable option. You can use Google Docs, but you all have access to Word for free. What you do is no, don't put the drafts in one document. I want like separate drafts. No, I'm not. But I do like to screw around with home recording. So, I have Reaper and Cakewalk. I don't do electronic music. I play the guitar actually. Um, but it's just all of this stuff is free. So I got all this beat making stuff along with the other stuff. Um, anyway, yeah. Um, yeah, it's mostly for like my MIDI board and my amp and everything. I don't think so. I don't think there's time. No, I didn't. I'm kidding. What's with the questions? No, it's just it's very humid today, so, rocking the bun. Um, Otherwise, on humid days, my hair gets very frizzy. Uh, well, so like you can find this on the internet, right? Like, how do I save as in Microsoft Word? That is a Googleable question, right? You can Google that. Um, Look on here, don't hit that. Turn off autosave and just go File, Save As. Okay, it's simple. They really don't show this to you guys in high school? I'm surprised about that. I mean, we still need to know how to use word processors, don't we? Google Docs. Oh, oh, because it's free. Well, look, at Carleton, you have access to Microsoft Word. Download the Microsoft 365 app. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah. Okay, so the functionality of Word is very similar to Google Docs. You can use Google Docs if you want. Just make sure you're saving your drafts as docx or PDF files. Okay? Um, but Word has a lot more functionality and you can get it for free. So download the Microsoft Office 365 suite and it's going to ask you to log in. Log in with your Carlton email and your password. So your My Carlton One credentials, and you've got the whole Microsoft Office. You've got Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Outlook. I think that's it. Maybe there's more. But anyway, you have access to it by virtue of your Carlton um, credentials. So like Carlton pays for a license so that everybody can use it. That's crazy. Yes, you can. Yeah, you can use it on a Mac. So, uh, you don't have to use um, Google Docs or Microsoft Word. Um, you can use Docs. Just make sure you're saving your drafts. Now, we are very, very behind. I need to finish this. So let's keep going. Um, so the plagiarism policy statement, maybe take a look at this. This is just from the course outline, but what I want to say about plagiarism, firstly, read the plagiarism policy statement. Read this and make sure you understand it. Uh, the important bit at the bottom, like if you're presenting ideas that are not your own, like um, you know, taking ideas from someone else, whether that's another student's work, another scholar's work from generative AI, you're passing that off as your own. That's plagiarism. And I cannot deal with that alone. If there is plagiarism, or if plagiarism is suspected, I have to take it up the chain of command, as it were. It goes to the chair of the department and to the dean. And if it's found that you've committed plagiarism, there can be serious penalties, right? Um, the best practice is number one, when in doubt, cite. If you're not sure, cite. So whenever you're quoting and paraphrasing, make sure you're using proper citation. And if you're not sure, Ask me, double check with me, right? I'm pretty good about, I understand the difference between improper citation and plagiarism. If you cite something but you just don't do it the right way, that's not plagiarism as far as I'm concerned. I will just say, "Hey, this isn't cited properly. You need to cite this properly." If I found that you've plagiarized something, like if you've copied and pasted something from the internet into your essay and passed it off as your own work, that is plagiarism, and I will prosecute that. So, policy on generative AI. You're not to use it at all, with the following exceptions, which I reluctantly make. Um, Coming up with ideas for topics and conducting research. Any other use of AI, any unauthorized use of AI will be treated as plagiarism. And I'm pretty good at catching it. Because again, this is kind of my area of expertise. Like I do philosophy of AI, cog sci. I work around that intersection of mind, AI, robotics, and philosophy. Um, don't just don't do it, okay? Please. Also, I don't want to be a cop. I don't want to be the plagiarism cop who's looking for the plagiarizers. Just don't. It makes my job less fun. It will make your life worse. You know, the consequences that you face for plagiarism go on your transcript, right? If you commit plagiarism and it's found that you've committed an academic offense, that goes on your transcript. So, just don't. Not that I think you will, but don't. So I explained the research. Oh, you mean using AI to conduct research? Yes. So uh, AI can be useful, like generative AI can be useful in that it is like a search engine that you can talk to with natural language, like in natural language, right? You can be like, "Oh, hey, ChatGPT, who are some philosophers that might be relevant to the essay I'm writing, which is about this topic?" And maybe ChatGPT will give you some names, right? And that's great. But what you have to do then is you have to verify that that what it's telling you is true. You can't just take it at its word because we all know these things hallucinate, right? They make stuff up. And it's not just that they sometimes hallucinate, they sometimes get things wrong. No, I think it's more accurate to describe these things as always hallucinating. It's just that they mostly get it right most of the time, but not all of the time. So if you're using it for research, like to try and identify sources that you could go and read or something like that, you need to make sure it's real. It's actually a real book because this thing will make up non-existent book titles and non-existent authors. Well, that's what the proof is exactly. So read those over definitely on your own time. Okay, so for the format of the essay, typed in double space, use I guess, use the template. And then you have no worries about this. Try to submit in MS Word format. That's doc files or docx. Failing that, you can do it in PDF. I can't really open other kinds of documents on Brightspace. So it's got to be docx, or PDF. I can't open other files through Brightspace. So just please make sure it's submitted in the right format. Um, Remember to include a bibliography or a references section in both the um, proposal and the final essay. Remember that proof of work. Remember to cite everything properly. I think you should use APA. You can use other styles, but APA I think is easy. You don't want to switch between styles halfway through. make sure you're consistent, and use the style guide, which is linked in the helpful materials module, but also here. No. No, no. No, sorry, that's vague who I'm talking to. No, don't use AI to rewrite anything or paraphrase anything. Because again, these things are plagiarism machines. I mean, they're trained basically using a whole bunch of text, which the majority of that they don't even, these companies like OpenAI don't even have the intellectual property rights to use. Um, and also, it's been found, this you can ch look into this as part of the lawsuit that OpenAI, so that the New York Times has launched against OpenAI. Um, it, a lot of the time, the AI doesn't even generate a new text. It just quotes verbatim from the sources it's been trained on. So that's why I call them plagiarism. Like they're literally plagiarism machines. Don't use them for that, right? Citation generators, yeah. But again, um, make sure that they're doing it right, right? You just need to turn off autosave. No, generally I don't do early feedback. Um, yeah, June. Yeah, like so look, there's only two acceptable uses. Coming up with ideas, conducting research. Don't use generative AI. Oh no, my shirt is so dirty on the picnic table. Oh, oh well. Okay, do not use generative AI to paraphrase, to rewrite, or to write. Do not use it for that. If you use it as a sounding board for coming up with ideas, that's fine, but you need to make sure that what it's saying actually makes sense. If you're going to use it for research, you need to actually verify that the sources it's recommending to you actually exist. In other words, you should not rely on AI to do any writing, rewriting, or most importantly, to do any of the thinking for you. So I need to be 100% clear about that. I know we call it generative AI. I know, your Sam Altmans and your Elon Musks are like, oh my God, we're so close to artificial generative intelligence. No, we're not. These things are not thinking. Do not let them do the thinking for you. Okay? That's very important. I don't know. Do you want to do that? Like, do you want to tell like Yuvraj, like, oh, ChatGPT, I'm really bummed about my essay, and then you tell it some of your deepest, darkest secrets? I don't know. I don't know if I want to do that. Um, yeah, you know what? If you use AI to come up with an idea, you should acknowledge that you've used it, I think. Like, hey, I came up with this topic when I was talking to ChatGPT. Yeah, acknowledge that you've used it. Sure. Yeah, exactly, Khalid. Like you can use AI for some things, but remember, we're here to learn how to think critically, to write, to conduct research. Um, Offloading all of that to AI does you no good. So there are so many reasons why you should just not use it at all. Like seriously, I know it makes things easier. You can just type in a thing and it, gives you something like, "Oh, here's 5 ideas for your philosophy paper." Cool. You're not going to be as good a thinker if you rely on that. If you do that for your entire degree program, I gotta say, like, why are you here? Why are you here? Um, University is supposed to make you a better thinker. You will not become a better thinker by relying on AI to do the thinking for you. It's as simple as that. You know, it's like if I wanted to get into shape by riding a bicycle. but I got one of those electric bikes and I never pedaled the bicycle myself. Well, I'm not getting into shape then, am I? Right? Same with this. Okay. Oh my goodness, we're going to run out of time. All right. Well, what kind of essay can you write? There's a few different kinds. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, Galen, that might be a good use. Uh, so, one type of paper is called a survey paper or a lit review. Now, you're not going to be writing a survey paper. A survey paper merely surveys. Um, Kind of like what Crumley does in his chapters in our textbook, right? He surveys an area and outlines different positions and different arguments that these people on either side of a particular issue will kind of launch at one another. Um, since you're doing a research essay and you're arguing something, you won't just be doing literature
Um,
review, but you do need to do some literature review. So, no one's doing a complete survey paper, but you need to survey the ideas that you're going to talk about. Again, if you want to talk about the minds, machines, and souls stuff, what you've got to do is survey enough literature that you can that now you've got all the stuff you need to convince the reader of your thesis. Um, then from there, so once you've done your surveying, you want to think, do I want to write a positive paper, a negative paper, or an adjudicative paper? So in a positive paper, you offer a positive argument. You argue in favor of something. I don't know, I argue, yes, machines can possess a soul. And then maybe your argument is something like, machines can possess a soul because we humans are machines and we possess souls. Therefore, other types of machines may also have souls, et cetera, right? Negative argument is the opposite. You argue against that. I shall argue that machines cannot possess a soul, right? And then give your reasons um, and your evidence for your position. Or you can write an adjudicative paper where you adjudicate, that is, decide between two or more different positions. So um, you might set it up like, various thinkers like Rene Descartes and John Searle have argued that machines are incapable of thinking. Yet other thinkers like Alan Turing and Hilary Putnam have argued that they are. Who is correct? And what does this mean with respect to the question of whether machines could have souls? In this paper, I will adjudicate between the two positions and argue that, bleh, and then you give your thesis. There you go. I just gave you an example introductory paragraph there. Oh, interesting, Jane. Yeah. I'd get an electric bike, but I'd make sure I pedal it from time to time. Evidence is scholarly sources. You want scholarly sources. You want good reasons. Think about, what we've been talking about with regard to epistemology. We want to have good reasons for holding the beliefs that we do. So you need to gather evidence to convince the reader to change their beliefs. Oh, it's raining. Good thing I brought my umbrella. Okay, this is going to be a little weird, but maybe I can get my umbrella out and then I don't have to stop. Okay, here we go. This is perfect. So in your essay proposal, if you used a research question, then answer in your thesis, that would essentially determine if you're for or against. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, basically. And this is the kind of thing you want to let me know about in your proposal, right? Like based on your thesis or research question and answer, you can tell me like, oh, I'm going to write a positive argument or a negative, or I'm going to write an adjudicative paper. Tell me that in your plan of attack. Okay, very important. I really hope we don't run out of time. Very important. Um, did you guys have to do the 5 paragraph essay in high school? Okay, so just so you're all aware, I'm getting a lot of yeses. Yep, of course you did. This is a teaching tool. That's all the 5 paragraph essay is. So I hope that your high school teachers told you that. But just in case they didn't, I'm telling you now. It is a teaching tool. It's designed to give you an idea how we write an essay, but it's not how we actually do it. We don't actually just limit ourselves to an intro, 3 body paragraphs, and a conclusion. Use as many paragraphs as you need to. So do not try and force it into 5 paragraphs. Yeah, Cindy, good question. Daniel answered it. Excellent. So no 5 paragraph essays. I decree that there shall not be any 5 paragraph essays. I'm getting some interesting looks sitting here on a computer with an umbrella right now. Just saying. Yes. And all of this, again, all of this is in these slides. If you forget anything, it's in the slides. You can watch the recording of this. And if I've missed anything, send me an email or ask me in the Discord server. So no 5 paragraph essays. And think of each paragraph, each paragraph has a purpose to serve. Each paragraph should be like a step or a stage in your paper. And they should be reasonably self-contained. One paragraph should be about one thing, right? Yeah, the conclusion you kind of re-summarize everything. An office hour via do. Oh yeah, yeah, I can meet with people over reading week. Yeah, totally. In fact, I've been so busy that probably on reading week I'm feeling like I'm gonna be bored. So I'm 100% able to meet with you. Most likely virtually because it's looking like I might be out of town. I might go up to North Bay for reading week. That's where my partner is. It's where my partner's family, my family, they're all up in that area. So I might go up there, but I'll meet with you over Zoom. Absolutely. Okay, always remember that what you're doing in an essay is presenting an argument. An argument is not like, when you argue with your friend or your partner or your parents or something. An argument is a means of convincing somebody of something. And remember, what you're trying to convince them of is your thesis or the answer to your research question, which is just a thesis in a different form. So the thesis is like a single sentence or maybe 2 sentences that captures the thing you're going to try and convince the reader of. And the argument is the means of doing the convincing, using evidence and good reasoning. Yes, yes, that's right. That's right, Khalid. Intro and conclusion stay, but don't limit yourself to 3 body paragraphs. You could have 5 body paragraphs or 6, right? And as we've already seen in this class, right, arguments consist of premises and a conclusion or conclusions. The premises should be true, and the conclusion ought to follow from the premises. And if you do that, you should be in pretty good shape. You want to be clear and concise, you want to be straightforward, make sure you're reasoning properly. Avoid logical fallacies, for example, particularly informal fallacies. We're talking like uh, ad hominem, straw man, argument from authority, argument ad populum, begging the question, um, all of these sorts of things and more. I won't go into detail because you can look up lists of informal fallacies on the internet and it will give you an idea. Matter of fact, maybe we could get some discussion going about this in the Discord server. All right, what's happening in the chat? Yeah. Yeah, Finn, that's a good idea. Counter arguments. Yeah, you want to like when you're doing this, you can write your essay in a sort of dialectical style. A nice trick to remember is like they say, I say. right? In fact, I had an essay writing guide when I was an undergraduate. That was the title of that guide. They say, I say. So, um, if you're writing an adjudicative paper on whether minds can have machines, you could say, okay, like people like Rene Descartes and John Searle say this. Alan Turing and Hillary Putnam say this. And I say this. And give the reasons why everybody is claiming what they're claiming, what they're saying, right? Um, well, yeah. Yeah, that would be fallacious reasoning. What kind of fallacy would that be? Well, cherry picking, I suppose. RFK Jr. cherry picks his evidence. That means he takes evidence selectively. Maybe a bad study he's using as evidence while ignoring all the good studies that show that there is no link between Tylenol and autism. That's called cherry picking. Yeah. It's like rather than picking all the cherries, you're just picking one or two nice ones for you, but not all of them. What you have to do is look at as much evidence as you can. Okay, we've only got about 9 minutes left, so it looks like we might have to finish this next time. Um, actually, how much more do we have? I can skip this slide because I've kind of already. Yeah, okay. We'll try and get through these two slides. Just more than five, Maron. Yeah, yeah. Like, let's save. There's a lot of questions that I've already answered, and there's a lot that really could wait for the Discord server. So, a lot of you might be thinking, like, okay, what kind of language can I use in my essay? Use simple language. Um, don't don't be overly verbose, right? What I mean is don't be too wordy. Don't try and sound smart by using overly complex language. To paraphrase Albert Einstein, try and keep things as simple as possible, but no simpler. Don't write the way you speak when you talk to your friends. Don't be like, what up, fam? It's your boy, Johnny Student. Today, we're going to talk about Socrates, etc. Don't be doing that, okay? Write in a more formal way. No, it's not a five-paragraph essay. So yeah, I'm sorry. I just don't know how to be more clear about this. There's not five-paragraph essay. That's a teaching tool. We're not writing five-paragraph essays. So try to be formal with your language. Try to be less colloquial, less conversational, and more formal. If you want an example, like look at the way Crumley writes. That's the kind of thing you're going for. Like Crumley writes in an engaging way, but it's in like a formal way, like kind of a little bit fancier than how you might speak to your friends, right? Um, the thesaurus is helpful, so is the dictionary. But these are to be used as guides, not sources. So don't use the dictionary as a source. Don't be like, the word philosophy means da 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 da, according to the Oxford English Dictionary. That's not what they're for. There's the dictionary and the thesaurus are there so that you can make sure you're using words the right way. They're not to be used as evidence or sources. So use them as guides, not sources. A lot of people also ask me, what about the first person pronoun? Because in high school English and in university English too, owing to the conventions of writers in this field, the use of the first person pronoun is discouraged. But it's not like that in philosophy. Um, you can use the person pronoun. For example, in this paper, I will argue that. You can use the third person if you want to be real formal. Like this essay will argue that. You can use the royal we if you're feeling fancy. In this essay, we shall argue that. I'm so fancy. You can do that if you want to. Just be consistent. Make sure the spelling and the grammar are good. Um, when you start to run into problems here, that's when your writing will become unclear. That makes it harder for the reader to follow. And if the reader can't follow what you're saying, you cannot convince them of your thesis. So make sure it's clear. Make sure you're also using technical terms correctly. Um, Crumley's Crumley's got a little thing in the preface that covers what a whole bunch of different technical terms in philosophy mean. Make sure you're using technical terms correctly. A big one that gets misused is concept, for example. Like concept in philosophy is a technical term. It refers to a specific thing. It refers to, mental representations, mental objects. But people will write a paper on like, I don't know, maybe you're going to write your paper on free will and you'll be like, people have many opinions on the concept of free will. Uh, sure, but you're not talking about the concept of free will. You're talking about free will, not the concept of it. So you've got to make sure you use technical terms correctly. Yes, write academically. Um, Probably the last slide we'll cover, and then I'll answer any questions on the Discord server through the rest of the week. You've got to conduct research, and what are you looking for? You're looking for scholarly sources. Scholarly sources are sources written by academic scholars. We're talking journal articles, book chapters, whole books. Most of these will have gone through some kind of review process, right? Like journal articles go through peer review. Book chapters or books are sometimes reviewed. It's not exactly the same process as peer review, but oftentimes we circulate the stuff amongst ourselves, get our colleagues to help us out, kind of an informal peer review. Published lectures are also good. Journalistic sources might be good depending on the topic you've chosen. I would start with the library. Just go to the library, right? Or you search through the library database on your computer to try and identify good sources. Look in the textbook, like in the further reading section. Um, Crumley has the sources that he himself has used there. That's a great way to find sources. What do you want to avoid? Encyclopedias, actually. Encyclopedias are not scholarly sources. Yeah, it has to be scholarly sources, or it could be a journalistic source, depending on your topic. Don't use encyclopedias. They're not scholarly sources. The one exception I will allow is the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, because its articles actually are written by philosophers and because there's a peer review process involved in getting those published. Definitely don't use Wikipedia. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Wikipedia. I read Wikipedia for fun, but it's not a scholarly source. Um, you might be able to find some scholarly sources in the references section on Wikipedia articles. Okay, that might be helpful, but don't use the Wikipedia articles themselves. Well, Yusuf, I'm explaining that, right? Like, a scholarly source is a source produced by a scholar that's usually gone through some kind of review process. So, journal articles, books published by academic publishers, chapters in books published by academic publishers. Go to the library and just look. You'll see. You'll see that's what I'm talking about. No, yeah, don't use the textbook is what I said. Yeah. Absolutely no websites, no YouTube videos, no TikToks, no podcasts, no tabloid journalism. I don't want to see references to InfoWars or the Joe Rogan Experience or the New York Post, or websites like I've got like Khan Academy, Psych2Go, Crash Course. Those are great. They're not scholarly sources, so don't use them. And like I said before, if you're going to use generative AI to aid your research, you got to be really careful to make sure that um, it doesn't make a bunch of stuff up. Trust but verify, right? Yeah. Well, I mean, the Onion is great. And you could, that would be something like, you can cite non-academic sources, but those aren't going to be evidence in your argument. They might be used to illustrate, like how Crumley refers to like, Leave It to Beaver, the Beverly Hillbillies, Peanuts, Charlie Brown. Um, he's referring to them as examples, but he's not using them as evidence. You can do that too, right? And you still need to cite that, but that's not evidence. Your evidence has to be scholarly. Okay, it's raining hard. I've got to get to another class. Um, I'll do a little Q&A on Discord and at the start of the next lecture if you have any questions. Oh boy, the rain is really picking up. I got to get out of here, everybody. I'll see you on Thursday, okay? I feel like Totoro here under my umbrella in the rain. Farewell, class. See you on Thursday.